All right. Just had to check the sound. Shalom. All right. Hebrew with I'm a Hebrew Israelite back again through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Before I begin this lesson, I want to give all honor, praise, and glory unto Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rakah Kodash, for giving me the spirit and the time to do this lesson. Double honors to the elders and the apostles, great millstone, who I learned this truth from. They're the real prophets of these end times, leading you to the correct way to salvation. Shalom. And shalom to you Israelites on the highways and hedges, giving up your bodies a living sacrifice. And shalom to you Akwaf in order. And shalom to you Israelites scattered abroad that may look like these other nations, meaning you might look like a so-called white man, Chinese man, Arab, or whatever other nationality is out there. But if your seed line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you are indeed a Hebrew Israelite, because this thing ain't about color. It is about your seed line, where your seed line goes back to. If your seed line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, regardless of your outward appearance, you are indeed a Hebrew Israelite, because this thing ain't about color. We're not the black Hebrew Israelites, as people like to call us. We're just the Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. All right. With that being said, I want to get into this lesson. As you see in the title, it says $50 million bounty for the Venezuelan president, right? Which is President Maduro, I believe his name is. But we'll double check that in just a second. I'm not too familiar with the guy. I know a little bit about him, not too much, but I wanted to bring this topic to your attention and just speak on it briefly, because it's just been on the back of my mind to speak on it, because I believe there's something more sinister to do with this whole ordeal. And I just want to kind of bring a few things to your attention, showing you that Esau has got some tricks up his sleeve. There's something more sinister to all of this. But for those of you that don't know, exactly what I'm talking about, what I'll do is share my screen, and I'm going to play a video or two. And Lord willing, this won't be too long of a lesson. I just got a few precepts I want to bring out, a few clips, and we'll close it out. All right. But Lord willing, it's edifying to the hopeful elect, man. All right. So check this out. All right.
Today, the Department of Justice and State Department are announcing a historic $50 million reward for information leading to the arrest of Nicolas Maduro. Maduro uses foreign terrorist organizations like
Salakia, what I'm going to do, because I'm not sure if the volume is very loud, I'm going to go ahead and open it with a different format, which will increase the volume. This won't take a second. Salakia.
Today, the Department of Justice and State Department are announcing a historic $50 million reward for information leading to the arrest of Nicolas Maduro. Maduro uses foreign terrorist organizations like TDA, Sinaloa, and Cartel of the Suns to bring deadly drugs and violence into our country. To date, the DEA has seized 30 tons of cocaine linked to Maduro and his associates, with nearly 7 tons linked to Maduro himself, which represents a primary source of income for the deadly cartels based in Venezuela and Mexico. Cocaine is often laced with fentanyl, resulting in the loss and destruction of countless American lives. The DOJ has seized over $700 million of Maduro-linked assets, including 2 private jets, 9 vehicles, and more. Yet Maduro's reign of terror continues. He is one of the largest narco traffickers in the world and a threat to our national security. Therefore, we've doubled his reward to $50 million. Under President Trump's leadership, Maduro will not escape justice, and he will be held accountable for his despicable crimes. If you have any information to bring this criminal to justice, call 1-202-307-4228 or go online.
So yeah, you heard the demon. That demon said, if any of you have information As to the whereabouts of Maduro, President Maduro of Venezuela, you can get 50 mil straight cash, straight Bitcoin. All right. You can get it wired to your account instantly. A lot of people gonna jump on that because the thing is, that's twice the amount that they were putting out on, trying to, the bounty they put out on Bin Laden, man. This is what I've heard anyway. I don't know how accurate that is, but I heard somebody say that it's twice the amount of money they put out for the hit, the bounty on Bin Laden, man. And Bin Laden was wanted worldwide for apparently blowing up trade centers, right? The Twin Towers, right? And it just shows you that they're taking this serious. And I have my theories as to what this is about. But first, what I'm gonna do, right? I want to bring out. I want to bring out a precept or two real quick. Let me share my screen again. All right, so this is the book of Psalms, chapter 55, and I'm gonna start at verse 20. It says, "He hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant." Now, this is talking about Esau, the so-called white man. They go around to different countries and they steal people's land. They put their hand against people that are at peace with them. You know what I mean? People that haven't done them no harm, and they'll go there and just steal and kill, rape, right? It says he have broken his covenant because these people don't keep, they break every treaty they make. They don't, they're not trustworthy, right? So this gives you an idea as to who this is talking about. But this is the point in verse 21. It says the words of his mouth were smoother than butter. That's why you hear her throwing around the word terrorism, saying that he's funding a terrorist organization and, we're doing this to save countless American lives, right? But when this Pam Blondie is talking about saving American lives, she don't have you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans in mind, because that's not the Americans that they're referring to, man. They could give a damn about your life, right? But anyway, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter. It says, but war was in his heart. His heart is his mind, okay? And, you can't trust these people because no matter how good they seem to be, they speak like they're doing good for the people or whatever, right? But the whole time there's nothing but war in their heart, man. It says his words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. See? So he's got two horns like a lamb, speaks as a dragon, right? So they come across like they're, meaning to do good for the people. But it's all deception, man. It's nothing but deceit in their heart, right? In their mind. Okay, so this is what we're dealing with right here, because you got to understand that during the 80s, the crack epidemic, man, they didn't give a damn about Jake, right? But now all of a sudden, they act like they give a shit about American lives when, before, when it was Jake that was the main people on drugs and stuff, on crack and heroin or whatever. They threw the book at them, and the prison industry increased. The prison population increased by like 4 times, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, for those who don't know what fentanyl is, because this is the drug they're waging war against now, but they're trying to come against Maduro because they're saying that he is supplying Americans with it, right? I got this article right here. It says, what is fentanyl? Because what they're saying is that the cocaine that's coming across the border from Venezuela is laced with fentanyl and is taking away so-called white people's lives, right? Is what they really mean to say. But it says here, Fentanyl is an extremely potent synthetic opioid similar to morphine, but more powerful. It is a prescription drug, but is also manufactured illegally and is sometimes mixed with other illicit drugs such as heroin and cocaine, right? Which is the case with the epidemic in America right now, killing so-called countless American lives. It says often without the user's knowledge, right? So these people aren't aware that they're taking these drugs like cocaine and heroin, and it's laced with fentanyl. So it says the potency of fentanyl makes it very addictive and puts users at high risk for overdose. And this is true because I've seen videos of police that have, they'll put their hand in somebody's pocket or something. They'll touch something that had fentanyl on it, and just from having contact with it on their skin causes them to overdose. And you see them on the ground shaking hysterically and, I mean, suffering like they're about to die just because they touched it. Police officers, man, I've seen videos. So it is very potent. Hey, but the thing is, none of this stuff wouldn't exist if it wasn't for, like the CIA, basically Esau and his policies and stuff, man, because they're making money off it. They're also depopulating people because they obviously want to keep the population down. So what better people to depopulate than people that want to dabble in these type drugs, man? So it's a win-win for Esau. It creates jobs so his police can lock people up. He can put people in prison and then make money off them, free slave labor and all that, right? So there's a lot more sinister stuff going on than them trying to help people. They ain't trying to help nobody, man, but themselves. So it says illegally manufactured fentanyl has become more prevalent in the United States in recent years, leading to a huge increase in drug overdose deaths. It says in 2022, the rate of drug overdose deaths involving fentanyl was 22.7 per 100,000 population. It says compared to a rate of just 1 per 100,000 population in the year 2013. So that's damn, that's in a couple of years. That's like in 9 years, that's like a 200 no, yeah, 220% jump, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if my math is correct, which might not be. But anyway, let me scroll up a bit because this is the graph right here. It says number of overdose deaths from fentanyl in the US from 1999 to 2023. Now, I don't have anything recent past 2023, but you can see here it peaked in 2022 with 73, almost 74,000 deaths, right? And we're going to get into the statistics as to who is suffering more from fentanyl, because what you'll find is that it's so-called white people as a whole are dying more than any other race. So of course they're going to wage war on Maduro over this incident, because I mean, look at the measures they go to, right, to preserve white lives, right? They are spraying chemtrails in the sky to make the world comfortable for these people because the sun kills them. So they actually go as far as spraying the whole damn planet pretty much with chemtrails, right? Just to keep their people cool, and they'll disguise it as fighting climate change and this and that, right? Which is all a bunch of baloney, right? For those that have the eyes to see. But you see here, since about what, 2014, 2013, between then and 2023, so a 10-year period, you can see how much it spiked, man. So they're taking this serious because it's killing white lives. You know what I mean? Right here it says fentanyl overdoses by gender and race slash ethnicity. So it says as of 2022, the rate of drug overdose deaths involving fentanyl in the United States is over 2 times higher among men than women, which is irrelevant. We don't really need to know that. But it says, and the reason the deaths are higher among men is because men are more on the streets than women, man. Women get Section 8 and all sorts of help from Esau, while men are out there on their ass, man. Okay. If the man and the woman ain't living together, you best believe the man is out here in the world struggling while the women are living comfortably, you know what I mean, through Section 8 and all that, just for spreading their legs and having a child, right? It's just the facts. It's just truth. So Jake is down and out. So Jake is out here stressed on the streets on drugs. That's why you're seeing that the overdose deaths are higher among men. It says over 2 times more in men than women. But it says rates of overdose deaths involving fentanyl were low for both men and women until around the year 2014, which you saw in that chart here. This is 2014, and that's when you start to see it spike like crazy, right? In a 10-year span. So it says when they began to quickly increase, it says especially for men, it says in 2022 there are around 19,880 drug overdose deaths among women that involve fentanyl compared to 53,958 such deaths among men. It says at that time the rate of fentanyl overdose deaths was highest among non-Hispanic American, Indian, or Alaska natives. It says, and lowest among non-Hispanic Asians, whatever the hell that means, man. Okay. So this is the point. It says, however, from the years 2014 to 2018, non-Hispanic whites. What the fuck is a non-Hispanic white, man? Just say whites. What the hell is a non-Hispanic white? It says has the highest fentanyl overdose rate, death rates. But anyway, in simpler terms, let's go to this one I got right here. The last little article I got shows you a chart, right? It says that, black people, so-called blacks anyway, is the darker blue bar right here, right? You got Asian and Pacific Islanders are like the red and the orange. Indigenous would be the purple. Light purple, they class as multiracial, which there's no such thing. It's just you are who your father is, but it's a way for them to mix. They can mix whites in there, they can mix so-called blacks in there. But the so-called whites is the light blue bar, right? And the overdose deaths were highest among them in 2016 and 17. Then Jake started to take over after 2018. And now you can see that Jake, which is the dark blue bar, is surpassing Esau in deaths quite a lot, right? But there's more to it than that, because when we read down here, it says Black Americans are more likely to die from fentanyl poisoning than any other racial demographic. It says, although the total of, this is the point here, it says, although the total number of fentanyl deaths is higher among white people. Go figure. It says the per capita rate of fentanyl deaths per 100,000 black people reached 26.6 last year compared to the 19.2 fentanyl deaths out of 100,000 white people. Right? So we don't really need to read any more of that. If you want, I'll leave the link to these if you need it in the commentary or whatever, or the description. But what I want to do now, right? If you follow along with me, I'm gonna show you something. Right, we'll play this, and then I'm gonna go a bit further. We'll get into the fact that you Jakes are the main target, man. Okay, because the thing is, Esau, he wants to preserve his people, but he can give a damn about your people, our people, right? We'll get into that in just a second, but check this video out for now. I'm gonna play it through VLC so that it's louder. Check this out.
Washington, D.C. should be one of the safest, cleanest, and most beautiful cities anywhere in the world. And today we're formally declaring a public safety emergency. This is an emergency. This is a tragic emergency. And it's embarrassing for me to be up here. You know, I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia on Friday. I don't like being up here talking about how unsafe and how dirty and disgusting this once beautiful capital was, with graffiti all over the walls. It's another part of it, by the way, because we're
Now, by the way, this is Trump talking about a recent move he's made, right? Which is a whole nother topic, but he's speaking about how he wants to clean up Washington D.C. So he's deploying, I believe it was the National Guard. He said, or yeah, I believe he said the National Guard. He's deploying out there, and he's gonna militarize the police or something along them lines. To basically, he's going through extensive measures to clean up the streets of DC because the homelessness and the crime rate is getting out of control, right? Which ultimately is due to bad policy, bad governing, bad rulership, right? Because these, this wouldn't even be a problem if these people were righteous rulers, man. But now they're coming along. Their motto is never let a good crisis go to waste. So they're going to use this crisis as a way to make them look like an angel of light, basically, right? When they're really just the devil, right? But anyway, let me go ahead and continue.
talking about safety, but we're also talking about beautification. We have the most beautiful, potentially, capital in the world. We always had. But people come from Iowa, they come from Indiana, they come and then they get mugged. Not going to happen. Keep coming, because by the time you get your trip set, it's going to be safe again, and it's going to be clean very quickly. We're going to replace the medians that are falling down all over the roads. We're going to replace the potholes. We're going to put a nice new coat of asphalt over the top. No, we don't have to rip the road out and spend 7 years building a new road. So today we're declaring public safety emergency in the District of Columbia, and Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's fantastic, is taking command of the Metropolitan Police Department as of this moment. And I'll be making the appropriate notifications to Congress and to the mayor, our new DEA administrator, who's one of the top in the country. He better be Terry. If you're not, I'm going to get rid of you so fast. Terry Cole. Terry, thanks. Very good. We just got him. Most highly recommended person. And you'll be designated as the interim federal commissioner of the Metropolitan Police Department. Okay? And you run them tough. They're good. You have a lot of good people. You have people that shouldn't be there. You also have people that shouldn't be there. They got in there because of woke. But you have a lot of great police. And those people are the ones that want to help you. This city will no longer be a sanctuary for illegal alien criminals. We will have full, seamless, integrated cooperation at all levels of law enforcement, and we'll deploy officers across the district with an overwhelming presence. You'll have more police, and you'll be so happy because you'll be safe. When you walk down the street, you're going to see police, or you're going to see FBI agents. We're going to have a lot of agents on the street.
So in other words, you're going to have a lot of hardcore racist, so-called white supremacists roaming the street with tactical gear, right? Because they're not on the streets to protect those that are asleep. They're to attack protesters, people that are protesting against their wickedness, right? The ones that have a voice, the ones that are outspoken, and they're there for Jake, man. Because the thing is, he's got this idea of what he wants America to be, man. Okay. And it doesn't include you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, man. You're the target. This like I read earlier, they speak smoothly, but smooth as butter, but war is in their heart, man. There's always a sinister trick up their sleeve, But ultimately, what I really should have played that for another lesson, because that's not really related to the war, the bounty on Maduro, right? It's not quite the clip I was expecting it to be. But ultimately, what it comes down to is basically Revelations 12 and 12, right? I'm gonna read it. It says, Revelations 12 and 12, therefore rejoice ye heavens and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. So that's you masses out there, you sheeple, you people that don't know what the hell's going on, and you're just living life how you want to live it, man. All right. So it says, woe unto you. This is bad times for you we're coming into, man. It says, for the devil, right, which is Esau Edom, is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he have but a short time. So they're pulling out all stops right now, man. Talking about cleaning up the streets of DC, cracking down on fentanyl abuse, and attacking the Venezuelan president. And one of my theories about that Venezuelan president, Maduro, right? The reason they all of a sudden now, right? Because apparently he's a major part of the trafficking of fentanyl into America, right? But why ain't they cracked down on him a while back, man? Why all of a sudden? You know why? It's because this man has over $4.4 billion in gold reserves, man. And it's, Venezuela is one of the richest has the richest mineral reserves in the whole of Latin America. Okay. So, of course, they need him to be the boogeyman, right? Put a bounty out on him which is so high, double that of bin Laden, so that, they can get his ass just like they did Muammar Gaddafi, man, because he's a threat to so-called white supremacy, man. When he's out here, having all this resources, minerals that Esau needs in such a desperate time where his system's failing. All these countries are turning away from the dollar and forming the BRICS currency. Esau needs that gold, man. He needs that little bit of money. He needs that come up, right? So what better time to wage war on Maduro, right? Especially since Maduro has all these resources and he's helping take away white lives. Shit, man. They need him. They need that bounty on him. That's why they're going to such. I mean, where are they pulling this money from? You know what I mean? Apparently, America's trillion, like what, 30 something $trillion in debt, if I'm not mistaken. But all of a sudden, they got money to pull out their ass to militarize ICE. They got more money. They're investing more money into militarizing ICE than Putin has spent on his whole Russian army, man, and his military. That's crazy. Where they getting this money from if they're in so much debt? You see what I mean? These people, they're just crooked as hell, man. Okay, the whole system is wicked to the core. Right? Let's read this here. 2 Corinthians 2:11. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. We know that there's something more sinister to this. Because when has Esau ever done good for the people, man? He's the reason that there's fentanyl and all that in the country anyway. Because if this man was a righteous ruler, he would have nipped that in the bud a long ass time ago. You understand? So don't let this man fool you, because he's not as innocent as he tries to make himself out to be. This is 2 Corinthians 11 and 14. It says, and no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. They appear like they're doing good, but really they're just the damn devil. They're Satan. You gotta understand, when scriptures speak about Satan, it means adversary. Let's see what the modern definition comes up with. All right, Satan definition on Wikipedia. Satan, also known as the devil, is an entity in Abrahamic religions who entices humans into sin or falsehood. Yeah. They're not really going into the etymology of that word. You have to go into the blue letter. But, to save time, basically, it means adversary, man. Satan is the adversary. He's adverse to the ways of the Lord, right? This is talking about Esau, because he's the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan here on earth, man. They do the will and the bidding of Satan. The Lord uses them for wickedness. He uses them on the left-hand side to spread wickedness, because the Lord is a perfect balance. He doesn't just bring good, he brings wickedness to this earth too. It says, and no marvel, for Satan himself, these Edomites, are transformed into an angel of light. So they parade themselves around like they're doing good for the planet. We're going to fight drugs. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to crack down on homelessness. But there's always something sinister behind it, man. They never do anything good for the people without some kind of trick up their sleeve. Let's read this real quick. This is Ecclesiasticus 5:15. Be not ignorant of anything in a great matter or a small. So, don't be ignorant to Satan's devices, in other words, man. This man don't do good, okay? Check this one out. Ecclesiasticus 14:5, it says, he that is evil to himself, to whom will he be good? You gotta understand, this man don't just oppress the so-called blacks and Latinos and Native Americans. He's evil to his own self. You got all kind of Edomites complaining about the elites, which what they don't understand is that's their people, man. That's the rulers of their people, these elites. Your Bill Gates, your Noah Yuval Hararis, you know what I mean, your Klaus Schwabs, your Rockefellers, all these rich banking families, that's these Edomites. So he that is evil to himself, they oppress the poor of their own people. The common Edomite got you working all kind of jobs and still ain't making enough, right? He that is evil to himself, to whom will he be good? So, you know what I mean? They only know wickedness. They don't know how to do good. Okay, it says he shall not take pleasure in his goods, right? Let's read this one right here. Sirach, Ecclesiasticus 12:16. It says, an enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips. Like that scripture I brought out earlier, that it says that his words were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. Remember? It's the same, it's a precept, it's the same thing. It says an enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips. And who's our enemy? Esau, Edom, man. It says, but in his heart, meaning his mind, he imagineth how to throw thee into a pit. So, they're out here talking about they're going to crack down on homelessness in Washington, D.C. They're going to militarize ICE to get the brown people out of their country. But it ain't good for the American people, because you got to understand, now that they've set up these law enforcement on the streets of Washington, D.C. and militarizing the streets of Washington, D.C., who's to say it's going to go back to normal, man? Now he's got his foot in. You give the devil an inch, he's going to take a mile. He's got his foot in the door now. He ain't never taking them troops off the streets, man. It's going to be militarized forever. You're going to see America keep getting worse and worse under this man's rule until the Lord totally destroys it, right? So you ain't making America great again. Every move Donald Trump makes is not is not good for you people, man. It says an enemy speaketh sweetly for with his lips. He's like, yeah, we're gonna make America great again, right? It says, but in his heart he imagineth how to throw thee into a pit. See, eventually they're gonna wage war on homelessness, and then they're gonna, because they're doing this because they know that the things that are coming down the pipeline are gonna cause many people to be in a homeless situation, man. So therefore, they can increase the numbers in the prison system, get free labor, and eventually draft you off into the war, man. You can't be ignorant of anything this devil does. It says he will weep with his eyes, but if he findeth opportunity, he will not be satisfied with blood. See, these devils are bloodthirsty as hell, man, and they ain't never satisfied. They could have every damn American locked up, still find a way to breed you and continue to oppress your future generations, right? because this man can never have enough, man. He's not satisfied with blood. Anyway, because I got one or two more clips I want to play. Speaking about the drug cartels, we're going to hear this Edomite speak on it because he makes a few good points. And then I want to move on.
So President Trump just signed the most aggressive anti-drug directive in American history. We're not talking about more border agents or tougher sentences. We're talking about the Pentagon deploying special forces against drug cartels. So this isn't enforcement anymore, guys. This is war. And this isn't even the best part. The classified directive treats these cartels exactly like ISIS, and Mexico is already pushing back against what's coming. So let me break down what this means for America's fight against the fentanyl crisis, killing over 100,000 Americans every year. So my name's Tom. I'm with the Daily Beltway. I'm also publisher of the Illinois Review and a White House correspondent for the Next News Network. And guys, we are a growing channel, and every like, comment, and subscription helps us bring you the news the mainstream media will not cover. So hit that subscribe button right now and join the fight. So on August 8th, President Trump signed a classified Pentagon directive authorizing military force against designated drug cartels. These aren't just criminal organizations anymore. They're foreign terrorist organizations facing the full force of American power. So we got a clip from Trump when he was on the campaign. He was talking about getting rid of these cartel boys, and let's see where he gets into.
Heroin, meth, and other lethal drugs are pouring across our wide open border, stealing hundreds of thousands of beautiful American lives. And it's happening like never before in our history. Children are being left without parents. Families are being ripped apart. Communities are being decimated. Our neighbors and fellow citizens are having their entire worlds destroyed like nobody thought possible. Our country is being poisoned from within by the drugs and by all of the other crime that's taking place. The drug cartels are waging war in America, and it's now time for America to wage war on the cartels.
This is actually an executive order.
So right after he made that speech, he was president, and then I think it was day one, he signed this executive order.
Designating the cartels and other organizations to be foreign terrorist organizations.
That's a big one.
Yes, sir.
People have wanted to do this for years. So they are now designated as terrorist organizations, foreign. And Mexico probably doesn't want that. But we have to do what's right. They're killing our people. They're killing 250, 300,000 American people a year. Not 100, like has been reported for 15 years. It's probably 300,000.
Today.
So the directive authorizes Navy SEALs and Delta Force to conduct targeted raids on cartel strongholds.
Now, you saw the graph I read to you earlier, right? And it talks about how it's like 100,000 deaths or something like that. They're saying it's like 3 times that, not what it's actually reported. So basically what Trump is trying to say in a slick way is that a lot of so-called white people are dying from this drug, so now we got to do something about it, right? Whereas before, let me just show you something, right? Because when this was an issue, when the drug problem was an issue for so-called black people, right? This was how they treated it. Check this out.
This wasn't about crack.
Let me play that with VLC. It'll be a bit louder.
This wasn't about crack. It was about control. 1971, Nixon needed an enemy. He chose black folks and activists. Nixon declared a war on drugs, but his own advisor admits that it was a political weapon. They couldn't make it illegal to be black or anti-war, so they criminalized the spaces where we lived. Nixon's aide, John Ellerman, said, quote, "We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black. But by getting the people to associate the hippies with marijuana and the blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities.
You see, they speak, the words of their mouth are smoother than butter, right? But war is in their heart. You know, this is who is talking about, the Edomite, man. Because they pretend like they're trying to help you, but really there's a sinister plan behind it all, man. There's always a trick up this devil's sleeve. He'll never change. He'll never know no different, man. Now, he's out here pretending like he wants to help so-called white people, which he partly does, but there's more to it than that too. Okay, you got to understand that Maduro has over $4.4 billion in gold reserves, man, as well as other precious minerals that America needs right now, because he don't have long left to rule. Remember, I read Revelations 12:12. They've only got a short time. Everything's falling apart for them, so they're making desperate measures, man. And eventually, I mean, it's gonna get worse, man. So just sit back, enjoy the ride. But anyway, let me go ahead and continue playing what she has to say. She brings out a lot of facts involving how the war on drugs, they pretended like they were trying to help the American people, but really she's bringing out information how they were saying that basically it's a way to get the protesters, basically people that speak out against their wickedness, and the so-called blacks, they a way to keep them down, keep them destroyed, because their biggest fear is us rising up above them, and then them receiving retribution for all the things they've done to us, man. That's their biggest fear. But anyway,
Funding for law enforcement exploded. Surveillance ramped up. And arrest? They didn't hit the Wall Street cokeheads. They hit the block. Hard. They ran headlines about super predators and urban decay, but never about redlining, never about underfunded schools. Just fear, fueled by propaganda. Who got the contracts to build the prisons? Who made money off of bodies in cages? How many families were broken on purpose? Next, we follow the pipeline. From stop and frisk to mandatory minimums. How mass incarceration became the new plantation. This wasn't about crack. It was about control. 1971, Nixon needed an enemy. He chose Black folks.
Anyway, that's just repeating itself. It plays on a loop, right? So that's enough of that. Now, it mentions in the book of Psalms, chapter 10. I'm going to read it real quick. Psalms 10:4, it says, the wicked, which is the so-called white man Esau Edom, it says, the wicked through the pride of his countenance will not seek after the Most High. The Most High is not in all his thoughts, right? So these people are the ungodly. Read Psalm 73 to back that up. They have no fear of the Lord in them, right? And the pride of his countenance. I mean, just check out a picture of Donald Trump, and that speaks for itself, man. And that's the Edomite for you, man. A proud nation of people. It also backs that up in Psalm 73 also, man. Okay. So it says they will not seek after the Most High, and the Most High is not in all their thoughts. But this is the point right here. Verse 5. No, actually, I think it's the next verse. But it says in Psalms 10:5, his ways are always grievous. Right? So they never do righteousness. Everything they do is wicked. Okay? Even if it appears on the outside to be righteousness, there's always something sinister behind it. His ways are always grievous. I mean, just take the jump shot, for example, man. We're trying to help the American people, but we're trying to depopulate you at the same time, right? His ways are always grievous. It says thy judgments are far above out of his sight. See? So they don't live according to the ways of the Lord. That's why they're the adversary. You know, when you go into the meaning of the word Satan, it means adversary. That's talking about these people, man. It says, as for all his enemies, he puffeth at them. That's due to his pride. This is the point right here. Actually, no, it's in verse 7, I believe. Psalms 10:6, it says, he hath said in his heart, which is his mind, I shall not be moved. You know, make America great again. say land of the free, home of the brave, we're always going to be in power, we're always going to be on top, which is all lies, you know. But that's due to their pride, why they believe this. He says in his heart, I shall never be moved, for I shall never be in adversity, right? So they go through extensive measures, and they don't care who they destroy along the way to make sure that they uphold so-called white supremacy. It says his mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud, right? So this is all they know how to do is curse, you know, calling us super predators, deplorables, human weeds, you know, inferior. His mouth is full of cursing. It says deceit and fraud. So deception and fraud, man. That's all they know how to do is deceive people, because they're Satan. When Satan was loose from the bottomless pit, which is Europe, back in the what they like to call the Dark Ages, right? They were released, and then they went out in the Renaissance era. Renaissance meaning rebirth. Destroyed all the icons of the dark images of the prophets and the angels and so forth. And they went out to deceive the whole world, man. Okay, which is, their deception has reached a peak in the end of their kingdom. It says, under his tongue is mischief and vanity. See, these people will never do good, man. Never do good. But this is the point that I was trying to get at. Verse 8, right? Psalms 10 and 8 says, he sitteth in the lurking places of the villages. You can take his police force, for example. These street sharks, how they lay up in the cut, looking out for Jake, trying to find an excuse to pull you over or to stop and frisk you, right? It says, in the secret places doth he murder the innocent. So, they you find bodies hanging from trees, you best believe it was probably law enforcement that did it. More than likely not in uniform, but, these people, they get together with their little buddies, off duty, and they go out and, these people are professional kidnappers, and they know all the spots that have no cameras. They know all of this stuff, and they're constantly plotting on how to kill Jake, man. So in the secret places, they're murdering the innocent, which is our people. It says his eyes are privily set against the poor. See, the poor is our people. So, all this talk about waging war, trying to crack down on drugs because it's killing countless American lives. Hey, understand that, there's more to it than meets the eye, man. His eyes are always privily set against our people, man. Okay, they're not out here to help you. It's not about because the thing is, you got to understand, a lot of this drugs that hit the streets is through their CIA, man. The CIA are involved in it, because if Esau wanted to crack down and stop drugs flowing into his country, he could do it. But there's big business in keeping that up and running, and also is opportunity for him to look like he's a saint, like he's trying to crack down on it. Anytime there's a drug bust, they plaster it all over the news when they ain't even putting a dent in the whole problem, man. But it makes them look good, like it says here, 2 Corinthians 11 and 14, and no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. These people appear like they're the angels. They're doing good things. They're doing good things for American people. Nah, man, these people are the problem. They're the root of the damn problem. Right? Let me bust out another video real quick. Check this out.
Is it a war on drugs, or is it an effort to get rid of what are called the dangerous classes? People, if you look at the history of Prohibition, there's good work in legal history on the history of Prohibition. It's very typically aimed at what are called the dangerous classes. People who are kind of getting in our hair. These are wars to control the dangerous classes. In fact, the explosion of the war on drugs here was in the 1980s and since. And during that period, U.S. incarceration programs just flew off the spectrum. Not because there's more crime. In fact, crimes remain kind of steady, and it's still relative to other countries what it was. And if you take a look at who's in jail, the useless people, black males, people who we can't incorporate in our society. This is the residue of slavery, of course, different genes. So yeah, they're the ones we get rid of. And in Latin America, there's a name for it. It's called social cleansing. The dangerous classes, you send out the death squads and kill them and leave them under the bridge. We're more humane here, so you put them in jail forever. Is it a war on drugs, or is it an effort to get rid of what are called the dangerous classes?
Yeah, so really their main target is you, Jake. So check this out right here. It's just a little bit of proof. Right, so you got the U.S. state and federal prison population between 1925 and 2013, and as you can see, during the 1980s, when you had the war on drugs, because apparently there was a crack epidemic and this and that, but that was a way for them to. What are the coincidences that the prison population skyrocketed during that time, man? It was all down to President Nixon, and it was followed by what was it? Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, and he continued the war on drugs, basically because it was so successful at locking up so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, right? So that's what it was all about. It's never been about helping. It's always been about incarcerating our people, man. So as you can see here, the incarceration rate versus other countries, other founding members of NATO, it says you got the United States, United Kingdom, Portugal, Canada, France, Belgium, Italy, Luxembourg, Denmark, Netherlands, and Norway. And as you can see, the United States incarceration rate surpasses all of them by far, man. Okay, because America is the incarceration rate is through the roof, man, in America. And as you can see here, it says President Nixon declared a war on drugs in 1971, and the U.S. male incarceration rate increased almost 5 times over the next 40 years. See? So you got 1971, where this blue line is, this vertical blue line. And then you can see ever since then, especially around the 80s, boom, skyrocketed, man. because of the war on drugs, which was aimed at so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, right? I want to play this, just another reminder of how Jake is always the target. Their eyes are privily set against the poor, right? What we read here in Psalms 10 and 8. He sitteth in the lurking places of the villages. It says, in secret places doth he murder the innocent. It says his eyes are privily set against the poor, right? Let's just prove that. Check this out, man. It's a little clip a little video I put together for Instagram, about a year or two ago. But it just shows that, this is just a reminder as to who the target has always been, man.
The pandemic, has disproportionately impacted on blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, impacted on blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, impacted on blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, who are about 4 times as likely to be hospitalized and nearly 3 times more likely to die from the COVID-19 pandemic than white Americans.
But, here in the United States, really, it's going to be Black people who really should get it first, and many Indigenous people, as well as people with underlying symptoms, and then elderly people. They're the ones who all deserve to get that vaccine first.
You heard him. You heard that, man. Both those men. They're basically saying that you deserve, you Jakes deserve to get like it's a reward. You deserve the death potion first, right? The poison. That's what they were saying. All right. So you've always been the target, Jake, man. Jake need to wake up, man.
Engineered pathogens are being created to eliminate ethnic groups such as blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, to eliminate ethnic groups such as blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans.
The pandemically.
You see, they put it in their movies, man. That's from a movie. I forget the name of it, but I've got the name of it on my BitChute channel. If anyone needed to know what the movie that is, I could dig it up. But that's from a movie, man. They put it right in your face and let you know that it's always been about you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Go figure, man. Because you're the Israelites, all right? To hell with what these Negro onlys are talking about. Yes, you so-called Hispanics and Native Americans are Israelites too, man. Okay, we all have the same enemy. We all have the same spirit. We have the same oppressor, right? And they're waging war against us, man. Now check this out. Because this was on live news, Fox News, man. It don't get more clear than this, man. Check this out. Open that with VLC.
I've talked to Republican Party leaders about this. I've said to them, you're going to be in office a long time after President Trump is. The Republican Party is going to long outlast all of us.
Now, what does that say right there? It says, coming for blacks and Indians first. Welcome to the New World Order. Right there in your face, and they zoomed in on it to make sure that you see. They zoomed in on it on a live Fox News report, man.
Aren't you concerned about that? So that's what somebody's going to have to convince the president of. The president isn't a long-term thinker. They're going to have to convince him that it's in his own interest, and that is what he responds to. Like, what is in his interest to
just say we just saw a very disturbing sign. It said, "Coming for blacks and Indians, welcome to the New World Order." I mean, who the hell knows, what people have and what they say on these things? But what do the Republicans tell you? When does the president start to perhaps give a different message, while others think he will never concede or will never give another type of message? And what do you say to the viewers watching you right now who think that there is something wrong, that this election was stolen?
I've talked to Republican Party leaders about this. I've said to them, you're going to be in office a long time after President Trump.
So you can see it right there, man. They put it in your face. You have always been the target, Jake. To hell with all this war on drugs, and we want to make the streets safer, get rid of homelessness. Nah, man. There's more. There's something more. There's always something more sinister to it than what meets the eye, man. Okay. But I think that's it on that. I've played pretty much everything. Right. Let me see if there's any precepts I missed. Yeah. I'm gonna actually start with Jeremiah. All right. Let's read this. Jeremiah 13 and 23. It says, "Can an Ethiopian change his skin or the leopard his spots? Then may ye also do good that are accustomed to do evil." Because Esau was created as the Lord's sword, man. He was created for the day of evil, which we're living in. Okay. He was created to bring chaos and destruction to the world. He was created to be the wicked. So the Lord is saying here, can the Ethiopian change his skin? No, he's always going to be dark skinned. It says, oh, the leopard his spots. No, leopard's always going to have spots. Just like Esau was always created to be, he's always going to be evil, okay? Check his track record. You think he's all of a sudden going to have a change of heart, start loving you, Jakes? It says, then may ye also do good that are accustomed to do evil, because these people are accustomed to do evil and they'll never know any better, man. It backs it up here in Isaiah 26 and 10. It says, let favor be showed to the wicked, yet will he not learn righteousness. So it don't matter how good you are to these devils, how much you put them on a pedestal, give them rulership and all that, vote for them, let favor be showed to them, right? Voting Donald Trump in office, go Trump, Latinos for Trump, right? It says, yeah, will he not learn righteousness? It says, in the land of uprightness, which is Israel, it says, will he deal unjustly? Because that's where they're at right now, prancing around, pretending to be the JEWs when they're nothing but fake ones, right? Imposters and frauds. But right now, you got the biggest gay pride parades happening in Tel Aviv annually, right? So it says, in the land of uprightness will he deal unjustly. It says, and will not behold the majesty of the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So they don't acknowledge the ways of the Lord, man. You can read that in Job 21. Quickly go to it, actually. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Because these people will never, ever acknowledge the ways of the Lord. They'll never learn the ways of righteousness, man. Because they weren't created that way. They, all these people trying to save Esau, that's that's all in vain, man. So we'll start at verse 13, Job 21 and 13. It says, they spend their days in wealth and in a moment go down to the grave. So this is how they live. They live good and then they die, right? That's the legacy of the Edomite. It's got the fatness of the earth right now. It says, therefore they say unto the Most High, depart from us, for we desire not the knowledge of thy ways. So they don't want to know the ways of the Lord. They're doing just fine without him, right? Is what they say. But it's what they don't understand is that it's going to come back to them in the end, man. Okay. It says, what is the Almighty that we should serve him? And what profit should we have if we pray unto him? See? Because they're doing fine. They spend their days in wealth. They don't need the Lord. It's our people that are down and out, packed in the Christian church, hoping for a bit of relief, right? From a false God named Jesus, right? And for those that might get offended, I'm not saying that the Son of the Most High don't exist, but they lied to you about his name, his image, and what he stood for. He had a Hebrew name, Yahushai, and if you're not coming in that name, you're not coming in the right spirit, and you're not treating his name as holy, man, because his name carries a certain spirit with it. Coming under the name of Jesus, you can forget it. That's a false god. Coming under the name Yahushai, now you have power. Okay. That's it. That's it on that. Anyway, I want to go back to this here. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 7 and 13. It says, consider the work of the Most High, for who can make that straight which he have made crooked? See, Esau was created to be crooked, and he'll never know any different, man. When he talks about getting drugs off the streets and waging war and cartels and this and that, it's not for your interest. It's not to help the American people, man. Because if he was really about helping the American people, you'd be living a way better life right now than you're living, man. So this is what I want you to understand. Don't be ignorant to, all this stuff about putting a bounty out on Maduro because he's destroying American lives. There's more to it than that. Don't forget that Venezuela has a lot of natural resources. 4.4 billion with a B dollars worth of gold reserves. Esau wants that because, he ain't got long left to rule. And he needs that little come up, man. All right. So anyway, I'm going to leave that there, man. Lord willing, you've been edified by this lesson. Hold on one sec. Let me add that to the stage again. Let's go back. And then boom. There we go. All right. So Lord willing, you've been edified by this lesson. It's about an hour long, not too long. Just I wanted to bring that out and just speak my thoughts on it, man. Hopefully it was edifying nonetheless, man. This man he don't care about you. Okay. Since when has he care? The thing is, man, he's waging war on drugs now when it affects so-called white people. But when it was the crack epidemic in the 80s, he was looking at it as free prison labor and getting so-called blacks, which they call human weeds. They want to get you off the streets, man. keep you behind bars, which divides the family structure, to now where you got sexy reds running around, with orange weaves and shit. And that's all down to Esau's policies, man. His ways are always grievous. Anyway, I'm gonna close it out here. Lord willing, you've been edified by this lesson. I'm gonna give all honor, praise, and glory unto Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rakah Kodash, Shalom.